Hi everybody, the final classic of the season is almost upon us, the Pertemps St Leger over the mile and 3/4 trip. This year it has attracted a really quite exciting field, more so than in previous years I would have said, and heading the market is Pyledriver alongside Santiago, the Irish Derby winner. So it really has got a little bit of everything, and I'm delighted to be previewing the race with Sun Racing expert Jack Keane, who is alongside me, social distance of course, to talk through the race. Now Jack, let's have a little talk about the start of the market. Obviously, Pyledriver and Santiago at the head of affairs. Pyledriver, a lot of money has come from him in the last week or so for William Muir. That victory at York was pretty impressive, wasn't it, in the Great Vulture?
Oh, incredibly impressive. I mean, we know when he emerged on the scene at Ascot, I mean, that was a stunning success. The way he kind of travelled and quickened up there was fantastic. Obviously, the Derby was a write-off, but I wasn't expecting that at York. The way he tanked through it and he just left them for dead was very impressive, beating the likes of Mogul, who'd obviously won at Glorious Goodwood. So, incredibly impressive performance. He's on a steep upward curve, and like William Muir has said all along, he's a huge horse. He's been quite backward, and he's just going to improve with time and more racing. So, yeah, he's a very exciting horse, and it's great to see a small yard like Willie's having a start like this.
Absolutely, yeah, a small owner as well. I mean, one of the great things about that performance, I thought as well, is he was carrying a penalty and he just absolutely sluiced by them, didn't he? Do you think he's going to be able to stay the extra 2 furlongs? Because there's been a few people saying he might not.
It's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, on breeding, there's a bit of hope there. I think his dam even tried to go over hurdles, so there's a bit of stamina there. He's related to some decent and classy middle distance horses. I mean, the extra couple of furlongs, it is unknown territory, but he's quite a relaxed customer. He switches off in his races, so I think he probably will get the trip. It's just a question of when you come up against these kind of well-bred Coolmore horses who bottomless stamina, whether he'll get it well enough, because I mean some of these O'Brien horses just stay all day, don't they? So it's going to be interesting. I think he will stay just because he settles and he travels so nicely, but until they try it, you never know for certain.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, I'm in your boat. I think he will stay as well, and I hope he does, because it'd be great to see him bang there at the finish, wouldn't it? Also up there alongside him in the market is Santiago. We saw him win the Irish Derby earlier in the season and the Queen's Vase, and then finished third behind Neof Road and Stradivarius in the Goodwood Cup. What did you make of that performance? I wasn't very taken by it because he was getting a lot of weight from both horses, wasn't he?
Yeah, a bit disappointed, to be honest. I mean, finishing 2 lengths behind Stradivarius on the face of it shouldn't be disappointing, but just the way he progressed, won at Ascot, won the Irish Derby, you thought 2 miles was going to be bang up his street, getting all that weight from Stradivarius at Goodwood, which isn't the stiffest of tracks, so the fact he kind of flattened out a bit close home was slightly disappointing, but he was up against the greatest stayer we've seen probably since Yates, and in second was Neof Road, who's a very solid yardstick and stays 2.5, so maybe just 2 miles did stretch him a tad. Back to mile 6 and a bit, be fine. We obviously seen that the winner Ascot, so he's got an outstanding chance. Looks like Dettori's going to ride him, so he's got plenty in his favour. I mean, O'Brien just mops this race up, doesn't he? So he's got a lot going for him, definitely, yeah.
He certainly does, and Aidan O'Brien, as you say, mops this race up. It's his first string, and that is always worth taking note of, because he's like to have a couple of others in there as well who have also got good chances, but we'll come on to those in a bit. Hookum, also in the race, won the Geoffrey Freer quite impressively last time, also Royal Ascot winner this season. Owen Burrows is having a really good campaign so far. What do you make of his chance? I mean, I think he is progressing rapidly, isn't he?
He is progressing rapidly, very impressive at Newbury, travelled through that nicely. It wasn't run at the strongest gallop, it was kind of a bit of a crawl and sprint at the trip. So I'm still, I know that he won over the extended mile and 5, but I'm still not fully convinced that this is the kind of out-and-out test he wants. I think he's got the class for big 1.5 mile races, to be honest with you. I think he's a very talented horse, and like you say, Owen Burrows having a great year. It's going to be a big month for him. He's got some, obviously Tabdeed was a bit disappointing the other day, but he's got Minzal, good 2-year-old to come, yeah. So it's a big few weeks for him, but I think Hookum's got a great future. I'm just not 100% sure this kind of dour, tough stamina test is what he wants at this stage. I think he's more classy than that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Those blue and white silks can never be discounted this season, can they? Because they've been winning almost everything.
Not that the likes of Santiago and Pyledriver aren't classy, but I just feel like Hookum is more of a 1.5 mile horse, to be honest.
There you go, absolutely. One we've got to mention, who's been really well back this week, is Galileo Chrome. After Joseph O'Brien said it was 60-40, he's likely to go for the race. I would suggest it was probably more like 80-20. I think 60-40 is probably on the low side. And if he does go to the race, you'd have to say he'd have an outstanding chance too, because the manner of his victories recently, particularly last time, I thought was really quite impressive. He's got a lot of stamina. He's a very, very strong traveller, and he's a great big, strong. He's a big horse. He's got a sort of scopy type, who I think will be really well suited by the Doncaster trip.
Yeah, he's the dark horse in the race, isn't he? A bit of an unknown quantity. Brings kind of a different form line into the race. Like you say, very impressive at Navan. Looks like he's going to stay all day, so he's very interesting. And we know Joseph O'Brien, you can never ever discount any of his runners. He's in his short career, he's already won some of the biggest races in the world, so he commands a lot of respect. And I really hope he runs, and he's going to add a nice little dimension to the race, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, certainly will. And another one that would add a certain dimension to the race, and I think he is going to run, is English King for Ed Walker, who's had what can only be described as a slightly disappointing second half of the season after that brilliant Lingfield Derby trial win. Nothing really went right from the Derby, and then nothing really went right from at Goodwood, but he didn't really have too many excuses, I thought, that day. Do you think he's capable of bouncing back to Group 1 level? I mean, he's not really shown that he is a proper Group 1 horse yet, has he?
No, you're right, and I mean, we're all blown away by the Lingfield win, and he tanked all over Berkshire Rocco, who's a solid yardstick, and won very, very easily. The Derby, again, you can throw that out. I think he was just never really stood much chance from his position. Goodwood, I was very disappointed with Goodwood. Maybe it wasn't his track, but he just kind of seemed to take an age to get going. And I know he's a little bit short of room and maybe would have finished a bit closer, but I don't know. He looked exceptional at Lingfield. Maybe he's just, that performance flattered to deceive a little bit. I'm not sure. The jury's out for me a bit. I think he may well get the trip. He looks like he's quite a thorough stayer. But for me, I think he may find a few too good here, and maybe he's Group 3, Group 2 level. Maybe that's kind of his ceiling. So, yeah, he's been a bit disappointing. And I mean, hopefully he runs here and doesn't go to France, because I know they've got the Grand Prix de Paris as another option. So hopefully he runs for the strength of the race. But I wouldn't be backing him, no.
And Bjorn Nielsen obviously couldn't win the race with Stradivarius. Can he win with English King, who's certainly not as good a stayer as Stradivarius is?
I mean, the ledger that Stradivarius was in was incredible, wasn't it? Capri and then Crystal Ocean.
Yeah, that was it as well.
And there was another one in there.
Coronet was fourth, I think.
It was a really good race. Yeah, I think you're right.
Unbelievable. Yeah, some contest. Hopefully, be the similar one this year. Subjectivist. We've got to talk about him. He never saw another rival at Goodwood last time in horrific conditions, and he was obviously best suited by those conditions. But that's not to take anything away from him, because he's a very classy horse at his best. He's improving all the time. And, tough game as they come, Mark Johnston horses, this is the kind of test that suits him, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say, he's just a very reliable horse, always runs his race. Similar-ish profile to Sir Ron Priestley, who was second in the race last year. I think they won the same race at Goodwood before going to Donny. So he's a very reliable, consistent performer. He'll run his race, but he won't be good enough, in my opinion.
I agree. Tiger Moth and Dawn Patrol, two runners for Aidan O'Brien who could go in the race. Tiger Moth would be of the two, I'd side with him, I think, over Dawn Patrol, simply on that Irish Derby run where he possibly should have beaten Santiago. And on that, the discrepancy in price is kind of mad, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's funny because he's by Galileo, but he's all speed on his dam side, but he looks like a thorough stayer. And like you say, he was kind of gaining all the way to the line there. So up in trip's going to be very interesting. He's very lightly raced. He has to come into calculations. If you fancy Santiago, you've got to have a saver on this horse. Because I mean, he's open to any amount of improvement, so it's going to be very interesting to see how he does. I think Dawn Patrol, this is going to be stiff for him. He's a decent horse. I think he was put in his place by the other two in the Irish Derby, but he's in here to maybe ensure a decent gallop. Because I mean, the O'Brien horses, they don't want it to be a crawl and sprint, so they're going to want a solid end-to-end gallop. So maybe he's the pace angler in here.
Yeah, good point, actually. Well made. Anything else in the race appeal? I know there's one in particular that you like at a decent price.
Yeah, well, I've been looking at him for a few weeks, and Mohican Heights was actually an eye-catching third behind Pyledriver at Royal Ascot, where he got a little outpaced at the top of the straight and then was staying on again. He was only beaten a few lengths, finishing third in the King Edward. Then you can completely throw out the Derby run again. He was one of those that was out the back and never stood a chance. But I think up in trip, he's getting an extra 2 and a bit furlongs here, and he's bred to relish it. He's related to some real thorough stayers. In fact, his half-brother, Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is a great programme, by the way, he won the Mallard over course and distance a few years ago. So, I mean, there's a bit of course and distance form in the family blood, and I just think he's by Australia. He looks like he wants a thorough test, so I think he's 33-1, and on that, staying on third behind Pyledriver, I think there's worse each way bets to have.
Absolutely, yeah. Reasoned argument indeed. And I think probably the others have all got it to do, haven't they? I think there's no real other outsider who appeals to me anyway.
Yeah. Max Vega was second to Hookum at Newbury, but I think he was swatted aside by that horse.
Yeah.
So he's been a little bit disappointing this year. And just looking a bit further down the list, fair play to them for having a go with Tyson Fury, who obviously he was impressive winning on his debut at Donny, but this is a massive step up. It'd be nice to see him run well for connections, for rolling the big dice, but yeah, further down the list, there's not too much other than Mohican Heights is an each-way fancy for me.
Well, we've seen with Harbour Law in the past and various others that anything can happen in the Leger, so hopefully Tyson Fury will run a big race. Jack, got to come to you for a kind of a win in each way selection, I suppose. I know you like Mohican Heights, but is there anything you think kind of close to the top of the market he's got a really big chance above the others?
Yeah, I think Pyledriver is unoriginal, but I think he's the one to beat. And to be honest, I want him to win because he's one of the stories of the season. The whole story around his connections, him not meeting his reserve at the sales. William Muir, it's a small yard. Martin Dwyer rides, who's William Muir's son-in-law. It's just a great story, and I for the race, I hope he wins. And I'm hoping the horse that chased him home at Ascot can finish second to him again and get a bit of each way thievery up.
There you go. The King Edward VII could be the best trial of all time. I like Hookum. I've liked Hookum for a while. I was really impressed with that Geoffrey Freer win. He's going the right way. The stamina is a slight question mark, and he'd be my selection before Joseph O'Brien said Galileo Chrome is coming over, or likely to come over, and if he does run, I think he's going to win. I think he's a proper classy horse, and I love his running style. He's such a strong type who loves the stamina test, and I can see him going really well. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Jack, thanks very much indeed. Really good to talk through the race. It's a cracking contest this year. So many angles to look forward to. And if Pyledriver wins, it will be a biggest fairy tale you could possibly dream of. So hopefully that will happen. If not, Mohican Heights each way for the team.
Love it.